The Franks were not born as an empire, nor even as a single people. At the beginning, they were a cluster of Germanic tribes and armed groups settled between the Lower Rhine and the regions of the Meuse and the Scheldt, on the edge of the Roman world. Franks is more a political and military label than a compact identity, and within that name, different realities coexisted, such as the Salian and the Ripuarian Franks, united by the chance to move within a changing Europe. Between the 4th and 5th centuries, they entered the Roman system more and more often as federates, mercenaries, and allies, fighting for the empire and learning its mechanisms, its cities, roads, wealth, and weak points. When the Roman West collapsed and imperial authority broke apart, the power vacuum in Gaul became an open field where the winners were those who could do what raiders could not: turn war into government. The turning point came with Clovis, ruler of the Merovingian dynasty, who between the late 5th and early 6th century managed to assert himself over other Frankish leaders, expand territorial control, and above all, make a choice that changed the rules of the game: conversion to Catholic Christianity. It was not only a religious gesture, it was a brilliantly intelligent political operation, because it placed him on the side of the Gallo-Roman majority and the ecclesiastical network bishops, cities, and that administrative continuity, which, even after Rome, remained the real infrastructure of power. In practice, Clovis no longer looked like a barbarian conqueror ruling a foreign people, but like a legitimate king who could inherit the Roman West and be recognized as the protector of faith and order. From here, the Frankish kingdom emerged as a major power in Gaul, but that early strength carried a typical limitation of the age. The realm was often treated as a family possession to be divided among heirs, and this produced fractures, civil wars, shifting alliances, and constant competition among regional aristocracies. The Merovingians remained important and feared, but their world was built on personal loyalties, rewards, lands granted and revoked, and a fragile balance between center and periphery. As kings weakened amid dynastic divisions and internal struggles, the power of a figure who became the true engine of the state grew instead. The mayor of the palace, first administrator of the royal household, then military commander, and finally, the dominant force in politics. This shift is crucial because it shows that in the Frankish realm, legitimacy was not enough unless it was backed by the concrete ability to mobilize armies, manage aristocracies, and guarantee order. Between the 7th and 8th centuries, the Merovingian dynasty remained formally on the throne, but was increasingly symbolic, while the mayors of the palace led military campaigns, distributed honors, and built networks of loyalty. In this phase, the family that would change everything emerged: the Carolingians. The decisive name is Charles Martel, who strengthened Frankish power, organized cavalry, and consolidated control over vast regions, becoming the kingdom's real point of reference, even without being king. From him, a new logic was born. If you want to found lasting power, you need both military strength and a higher legitimacy that recognizes you as a just ruler. This is where the strategic relationship with the papacy enters the scene, because in Rome, the church sought protection in a world where imperial authority was no longer what it once had been, and external threats were real. Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, took the decisive step. He ended the political fiction of the Merovingian kings and had himself proclaimed king, with religious support that turned a power grab into an act of legitimation. From this moment, the kingdom of the Franks changed its nature. It became a project of unification and reform, with a dynasty that did not merely rule, but aimed to build an order. Pepin expanded power and bound the Franks even more tightly to the church, and when his son Charles, whom we call Charlemagne, arrived, the story accelerated. Charlemagne was not only a conqueror, he was an organizer of empire. He waged campaigns that vastly expanded the borders, subdued and integrated different peoples, imposed an idea of authority that was not merely Frankish, but claimed to be universal, and tried to give his dominion a more stable administrative structure through counts, margraves, missi dominici, and a system of control meant to hold together enormous territories. Under him, the kingdom became an empire in the political sense of the term, and the symbolic event that consecrated it was his coronation as emperor in 800, an act that was not simply a ceremony but a message. The West wanted a new center of gravity, a new Rome, and the Franks presented themselves as the heirs and rebuilders of order. Alongside war, Charlemagne pursued cultural and religious reforms. He promoted schools, standardized liturgical practices, supported the production of texts and the work of scribes, and created what is often remembered as an attempt at intellectual renewal, because he understood that an empire does not live by swords alone, but by rules, an administrative language, education, and a shared ideology. Yet this empire also carried an old problem within it. It was built on the charisma and personal ability of the ruler, and when the man who held everything together was gone, the structure suffered. After Charlemagne, unity became difficult, and the dynamics of dynastic division and competition among aristocracies returned. The Carolingian Empire fragmented, territories split apart, and from that rupture, large political blocs would gradually emerge, destined, in the long run, to become different worlds. A western area evolving toward France, and an eastern area that would shape the history of the German kingdom and then the empire. In the end, what remains of the Franks is not only a dynastic line, but a huge legacy. They transformed post-Roman Gaul into one of the foundations of medieval Europe, decisively linked power and church, created models of government and legitimacy that would influence monarchies and nobilities for centuries, and left a powerful political myth, the possibility of a unified West, which would return many times in history as a dream, as propaganda, or as a project, even when reality would be made of fragmentation, conflict, and new identities born precisely from the cracks of that first great imperial experiment.